The restaurant was buzzing with laughter and clinking glasses, but in one corner of the elegant dining hall sat a man in a worn suit that didn't quite fit. His shoes were scuffed, his tie a little crooked, and the way he shifted nervously in his chair made him seem like he didn't belong. To the other diners, he looked out of place among the polished men in tailored jackets and women in expensive dresses. Yet, he sat there with a small bouquet of daisies resting beside his glass of water, his hands folded tightly in front of him, waiting. That man was Henry Walters, the janitor everyone at Westbridge Enterprises knew. They saw him pushing his mop bucket across the marble floors, cleaning bathrooms late into the night, and whistling old tunes while emptying trash cans. To most, Henry was invisible, someone whose name they might not even remember. But tonight, Henry wasn't holding a broom. He was sitting at one of the most expensive restaurants in the city, waiting for a blind date. What he didn't know was that this date had been set up as a cruel joke. Across the room, 3 employees from Westbridge Enterprises sat at another table, hiding their Snickers behind menus. Kyle, the smooth-talking salesman, Melissa, the HR assistant who always had a sarcastic remark ready, and Sean, the finance intern who followed the others like a shadow. They had cooked up the plan over lunch earlier in the week. "Can you imagine his face?" Kyle had said with a smirk, "when she realizes her date is the janitor? The guy literally smells like bleach half the time." Melissa laughed. "It'll be hilarious. She's expecting someone sophisticated, someone successful. Instead, she gets Henry Walters." Sean had hesitated for a moment, shifting uncomfortably. "Don't you think that's kind of mean?" But Kyle brushed it off. "Come on, it's just a laugh. Besides, it'll make a great story at the office. Lighten up." So they had gone through with it. They convinced Henry that a woman named Claire had seen him at the company lobby and wanted to meet him. They told him she admired hard-working men like him and that she thought he was sweet and genuine. Henry had blushed, stammered, and finally agreed to the date. He even spent the little money he had saved on a suit from the thrift store and a simple bouquet of daisies because he remembered reading somewhere that women liked flowers. Now, as Henry waited, his knee bouncing under the table, he kept rehearsing lines in his head. He wasn't used to dating. His wife had passed away years ago, and since then, his life had been about work, raising his son, and paying bills. But tonight felt different. For the first time in years, he was hopeful. Then she walked in. Claire Anderson, the woman they had lured into this twisted setup, wasn't who they thought she was. She wasn't just another employee looking for a fling or a bored socialite with too much time on her hands. Claire was the newly appointed CEO of Westbridge Enterprises. She had taken over just weeks ago, after her father's retirement, and she had kept a low profile as she settled into her role. Few people in the company even knew what she looked like outside the glossy headshots in the corporate emails. Claire walked into the restaurant with quiet confidence, wearing a navy dress and a simple silver necklace. She was elegant, but not flashy. When the hostess led her to the table where Henry sat, she paused for a brief moment, surprised. She had been told she was meeting a man named Henry, but the man before her didn't look like a typical high-powered executive. His nervous smile and the bouquet of daisies were disarming. "Claire." Henry stood quickly, almost knocking over his water glass. He held out the flowers with a shaky hand. "These are for you. I wasn't sure what kind you liked." Something in his voice stopped her from reacting the way others might have. Instead of brushing him off, she smiled softly and accepted the daisies. "Thank you, Henry. These are lovely." From across the room, Kyle and Melissa's jaws dropped. They had no idea Claire was the woman they had set up to be the punchline of their joke. Sean looked between them, his face paling as he realized the gravity of their mistake. At the table, Henry was still struggling with his nerves. "I hope this place is okay. I don't come to restaurants like this often. Actually, I've never been to one this nice before." He chuckled awkwardly, rubbing the back of his neck. Claire studied him for a moment. He was genuine, almost painfully so. There was no arrogance in his tone, no attempt to impress her with things he didn't have. Just honesty. And that struck her in a way she didn't expect. "It's perfect," she said, settling into her seat. "Tell me about yourself, Henry." Henry blinked, caught off guard. No one ever really asked him that. People asked him to clean up spills, take out trash, or fix a light bulb, but not about himself. "Well, I'm a janitor at Westbridge," he began, his voice low. "Been there about 15 years now. It's honest work. Keeps me busy. I've got a son, Michael. He's in college right now. First one in our family to make it that far. I'm real proud of him." His eyes lit up as he spoke about his son, and his nervousness faded just a little. Claire leaned forward, listening intently. "That's wonderful. What's he studying?" "Engineering," Henry said with a proud smile. "Kid's always been good with numbers and fixing things. Guess he takes after his mom more than me. She was the smart one." His smile faltered for a moment as memories surfaced, but he pushed through. "She passed away a while back. It's just been me and Michael since then." Claire felt a pang in her chest. There was something raw in his honesty, something rare in the corporate world she lived in. No pretenses. No masks. Just Henry. Meanwhile, Kyle couldn't hold in his frustration. He leaned toward Melissa and hissed, "Why is she actually sitting with him? She's supposed to laugh, walk out, and leave him humiliated." Melissa's eyes were wide. "Do you realize who she is? That's Claire Anderson. The CEO. Oh my God, Kyle, what have we done?" Sean groaned, burying his face in his hands. "We're screwed. Completely screwed." But at the table, Henry didn't know about the whispers, the stares, or the stunned faces around the restaurant. All he knew was that Claire was smiling at him, and for the first time in a long while, he felt seen. They talked about little things, his favorite baseball team, her love for hiking, the way he whistled while he worked. Henry admitted he was nervous, and Claire admitted she found that refreshing compared to the arrogance she often faced in her professional circle. But the night wasn't over, and the storm brewing across the room was about to break. Because sooner or later, the truth of the cruel setup would come out. And when it did, the room would fall into a silence no one expected. The waiter came by to refill their glasses, and Henry fumbled to push the menu away, clearly out of his comfort zone. Claire noticed his hesitation and gently reassured him. "Order whatever you like," she said warmly. "Don't worry about the prices." Henry chuckled nervously. "That's easy for you to say. I was hoping they'd have a burger or something simple. All this fancy stuff. I don't even know how to pronounce half of it." Claire laughed softly, not at him, but with him. "Then let's keep it simple. I'll have what you're having." That simple statement made Henry relax. For years, he had felt invisible, the man who worked in the background while others passed him by. Tonight, he felt like someone cared enough to meet him where he was. At the other table, though, Kyle was fuming. "She's the CEO and she's humoring him. No way this works. We have to do something." Melissa grabbed his arm. "Are you insane? If she finds out we set this up, we're done. Fired. Blacklisted." Sean finally lifted his head. "She's going to find out eventually. And when she does, she'll know who's behind it. You two dragged me into this, but I'm not going down with you." "Shut up," Kyle snapped. "She's not going to find out." But he was wrong. Because midway through the meal, Claire's phone buzzed. She excused herself politely, stepping away from the table for a moment. Henry watched her leave, his heart pounding. She was kind. Too kind. He wondered what she was even doing here with him. And then he heard it. From behind him, Kyle's voice carried just enough for Henry to catch. I can't believe she's actually entertaining this. He thinks this is real. The guy's a janitor. We set this up as a joke, and she's... Henry froze. His hand tightened around his fork, and his stomach dropped. A joke. It was all a joke. The warmth he had felt moments ago evaporated, replaced by a crushing weight in his chest. He glanced toward the door where Claire had gone and suddenly felt foolish. Of course. Why would someone like her, elegant and confident, want to be with someone like him? The laughter from Kyle and Melissa twisted the knife deeper. When Claire returned, she immediately noticed Henry's change. His shoulders slumped, his eyes downcast. The spark that had lit up when he spoke of his son was gone. Henry. Is everything okay? She asked gently. He forced a smile, but it didn't reach his eyes. Yeah, I'm fine. But Claire wasn't convinced. She followed his gaze to the table across the room, where Kyle and the others were watching them. And in that moment, it all clicked. The strange setup, the way they were trying to hide their laughter. Her chest tightened. She turned back to Henry, her voice steady. They did this, didn't they? Henry tried to protest, but his silence confirmed everything. Claire's eyes hardened, not at Henry, but at the cruel game that had been played. She stood, her chair scraping loudly against the floor, and the room quieted slightly as she walked across to the other table. Kyle straightened up, trying to play it cool. Oh, hey Claire. Fancy seeing you here. Her voice was calm, but sharp enough to cut through the air. You set this up. Melissa stammered, we were just joking around. No harm meant. No harm. Claire's eyes flashed. You humiliated one of the hardest working men in this company. A man who shows up every single day to make sure your workspace is clean, your floors shine, and your trash disappears. You call that no harm? The restaurant went silent. Every diner, every waiter, every eye turned toward them. Kyle tried to laugh it off, but his voice cracked. It was just, we didn't think he'd actually. Claire cut him off. You didn't think. That's the problem. She leaned closer, her voice low but firm. Do you even know who I am? Melissa's face went pale. You're Claire Anderson. That's right, she said. CEO of Westbridge Enterprises. And Henry isn't just some janitor you can use as the butt of a joke. He's part of this company. He's part of my team. Without him, none of you would have a place to sit, a desk to work at, or an office that feels professional. And you, she glared at Kyle, thought it would be funny to tear him down. The silence was deafening. Claire straightened, her tone cutting through the room. You've shown me exactly who you are. And tomorrow, HR will be reviewing your employment. Enjoy your dinner while you can. She turned back to Henry, who sat frozen in disbelief. His heart raced, not from embarrassment anymore, but from the shock of her defending him. Come on, Henry, she said softly, her tone changing completely as she reached for his hand. Let's go somewhere else. Together, they walked out of the restaurant. And as the doors closed behind them, the whispers erupted, everyone stunned by what they had just witnessed. Henry kept his eyes on the ground as they stepped into the cool night air. You didn't have to do that for me, he murmured. I should have known it was too good to be true. Claire stopped and faced him, her hand still holding his. Henry, listen to me. None of this was your fault. You showed up tonight with nothing but kindness and honesty, and that's worth more than anything those three will ever understand. Don't let them steal your dignity. Henry blinked, his throat tight. I thought maybe for once someone actually wanted to know me. Claire's expression softened. I do want to know you. The real you. Not the version they mocked, not the image they tried to twist. Just you. For the first time that evening, Henry let out a genuine laugh, small but real. "You really mean that?" Claire smiled. "I wouldn't be here if I didn't." And as they walked together down the quiet street, Henry realized something he hadn't in years: sometimes, the people you expect the least can surprise you the most. But this was only the beginning of a story that would change both their lives. In the days that followed, word of what had happened at the restaurant spread quickly through Westbridge Enterprises. Employees who had once overlooked Henry now greeted him with respect, realizing how much he meant to the company. Kyle, Melissa, and Sean faced the consequences of their actions, learning the hard way that cruelty has no place where people are trying to build each other up. But the real change wasn't in the office, it was in Henry himself. For years, he had carried the quiet weight of invisibility, believing his life had faded into the background. That night reminded him that dignity doesn't come from a job title, a paycheck, or the clothes you wear. It comes from the heart you carry, the honesty you live by, and the resilience to keep going even when the world mocks you. And for Claire, the CEO who could have ignored the whole situation, the night reaffirmed her vision of leadership. True leaders don't measure people by status, but by character. She had seen in Henry a man of integrity, humility, and love for his family, and that meant more than any boardroom title. As the weeks passed, Henry and Claire stayed in touch, sharing meals, conversations, and laughter that grew more genuine each time. Their story wasn't about a blind date gone wrong. It was about two lives unexpectedly crossing paths, proving that kindness and authenticity can shine even in the darkest of setups. And so, what began as a cruel joke ended with a powerful reminder: never underestimate the worth of another human being. Because sometimes, the person the world overlooks is the one with the brightest light to share.